Quest for Democracy, a documentary, A Whisper to a Roar, looks back at the emergence of democracy movements from Eastern Europe to North Africa and south to Zimbabwe. VOA's Carolyn has more.
The documentary, A Whisper to a Roar, captures scenes from the democracy movement as it unfolds in 5 countries: the Arab Spring in Egypt, political corruption in Malaysia, the Orange Revolution in the Ukraine, the youth vote in Venezuela, and the power-sharing arrangement in Zimbabwe. The film blends news footage of climatic events like failed elections and violent demonstrations, as well as regime changes, with behind-the-scenes interviews with student leaders, emerging heads of states, and political disruptors in action. These activists share their personal struggles against their country's oppressive regimes. Filmmaker Ben Moses explains why he made the film.
In order for democracy to continue and work well, I and everyone in the country has to understand that we have to participate. We have to keep an eye on those who govern us, because the idea of the corruption of power is universal.
The film features VOA's own Miroslava Gangazi, the wife of a Ukrainian journalist who accused the president of Ukraine of corruption and paid for it with his life.
Люди завели роботу. За кордон винесли мільйони грошей.
Безпеки, а не питання Міністерства внутрішніх справ.
And then the nightmare began. Cars were following him, and people were sitting, looking up to our windows. And on September 16, he didn't come home.
Despite evidence confirming Kuchma ordered his kidnapping and ransom, he was never convicted of any wrongdoing.
Moroz then accused President Kuchma and Interior Minister Kravchenko and head of presidential administration in ordering murder of Georgy.
The film takes the viewer behind the scenes of the rigged election and the Orange Revolution, which forced Kuchma's party out of power.
I know that freedom of the press is incredibly important, because that's the one that shines the light on what those who govern us are doing. And so I'm very proud to be a member of that society.
The film traces the history and documents the corruption behind the violence and poverty in Zimbabwe, which forced Robert Mugabe's challenger to withdraw from the presidential election.
At that time, the social status of the country was in a complete decline. There was dire poverty everywhere. Cholera was rampant throughout the country. People were dying. The education system had completely collapsed.
Inflation was, running into billions %.
People had no food, people had nothing, people were just desperate.
And that's when SADC in South Africa said there is need to be a resolution of the Zimbabwe crisis in one way or the other to contain it.
Well, I want just to say that President Mbeki is going to give a press test, but I can say that we've got a deal.
The mediation process led to the global political agreement where Mugabe will retain the president and Morgan Tsvangirai will become the prime minister.
Take the oath.
Morgan Tsvangirai was sworn in as Prime Minister, much to the anger of President Mugabe, who resisted sharing power for as long as he could.
Who would have thought that with bare hands, with nothing else, we would have tackled a militarized regime like ZANU-PF regime?
In the case of Zimbabwe, we went in as tourists. We could not get journalism visas. So we divided up, we went in as tourists, and we were on our way to Victoria Falls, even though we were with the blessing of the Prime Minister. And we sat with him for 4 days and interviewed him. He did not control the police. He did not control the military. And as a result, we had to be very careful. We were arrested on the street. And I was with a very, very important leader of the city. And we were stopped by the Central Intelligence Operation, the plainclothes police, taken off to the police station, grilled for 45 minutes.
Fortunately, the filmmakers were released, and the second part of our review of A Whisper to a Roar features their coverage of the student democracy movements in Venezuela and Egypt. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.